All right, hello. I am gone again today. So sorry, but I have a sick kiddo. I can't be helped. I know that you don't like me doing the screencast as much as you like me being there in person, but I figured your options were either I do the screencast for you or Mr. Martin do read aloud for you. And I figured you probably like this option a little bit better. Don't say anything to Mr. Martin. He probably can't hear you. Make sure you're nice to him, okay? All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with chapter 21 of Holes. Stanley just took the fall for the missing sunflower seeds, and when Mr. Sir took him to the warden got mad at Mr. Sir and not at Stanley. Okay, it was a long walk back to his hole. Stanley looked out through the haze of heat and dirt at the other boys lowering and raising their shovels. Group D was the farthest away. He realized that once again he would be digging long after everyone else had quit. He hoped he'd finish before Mr. Sir recovered. He didn't want to be out there alone with Mr. Sir. "He won't die," the warden had said. "Unfortunately for you." Walking across the desolate wasteland, desolate means like really nasty looking, Stanley thought about his great-grandfather. Not the pig stealer, but the pig stealer's son, the one who was robbed by Kissing Kate Barlow. He tried to imagine how he must have felt after Kissing Kate had left him stranded in the desert. It probably wasn't a whole lot different from the way he himself felt now. Kate Barlow had left his great-grandfather to face the hot, barren desert. The warden had left Stanley to face Mr. Sir. Somehow, his great-grandfather had survived for 17 days before he was rescued by a couple of rattlesnake hunters. He was insane when they found him. When he was asked how he had lived so long, he said he found refuge on God's thumb. Refuge means like a place to go and hide or a place to be safe. He spent nearly a month in a hospital. He ended up marrying one of the nurses. Nobody ever knew what he meant by God's thumb, including himself. Stanley heard a twitching sound. He stopped in mid-step with one foot still in the air. A rattlesnake lay coiled beneath his foot. Its tail was pointed upward, rattling. My son's saying goodnight. Night-night, Hayden. I'm recording. Go to bed. Stanley backed his leg away, then turned and ran. The rattlesnake didn't chase after him. It had rattled its tail to warn him to stay away. "Thanks for the warning," Stanley whispered as his heart pounded. The rattlesnake would be a lot more dangerous if it didn't have a rattle. Now, I'm going to go in and take a little break here and say I've read this book several times, but as I read it this time, I kind of had this realization that the rattlesnake kind of reminded me of the warden. But the thing about the warden, besides the fact that she had the rattlesnake venom nail polish, was she was almost kind of like a rattlesnake, but without a rattle. She had that poisonous stuff on her nails, and she gave no warning whatsoever, and she just hauled off and smacked Mr. Sir. So she gave no warning whatsoever when she got upset. She did the exact same thing when she poked the pitchfork into Magnet. Okay? And so we have this kind of draw or this connection kind of between the two of them. Besides the fact that she has the rattlesnake venom nail polish, she's also pretty dangerous and doesn't give any warning. "Hey, caveman," called Armpit, "you're still alive." "What'd the warden say?" asked X-Ray. "What'd you tell her?" asked Magnet. "I told her I stole the seeds," said Stanley. "Good going," said Magnet. "What'd she do?" asked Zigzag. Stanley shrugged one shoulder. "Nothing. She got mad at Mr. Sir for bothering her." He didn't feel like going into details. If he didn't talk about it, then maybe it didn't happen. He went over to his hole, and to his surprise, it was nearly finished. He stared at it, amazed. It didn't make sense. Or perhaps it did. He smiled. Since he had taken the blame for the sunflower seeds, he realized the other boys had dug his hole for him. "Hey, thanks," he said. "Don't look at me," said X-Ray. Confused, Stanley looked around, from Magnet to Armpit to Zigzag to Squid. None of them took credit for it. Then he turned to Zero, who had been quietly digging in his hole since Stanley's return. Zero's hole was smaller than all the others. So I'm going to go ahead and make an inference here that it was actually Zero who dug out Stanley's hole. Now, the part that I think is so interesting about this is the fact that Zero didn't get any of the sunflowers. Everybody else got sunflowers, but Zero did not. But yet Zero was the one who helped out Stanley. All right, we're gonna at the end of the chapter here.